All right. Since we have a quorum, I'm calling the meeting to order. Um, so first we will take roll, and I'm simply going to go around the table. Sheena Chin. Okay. Fatma. I'm here, Mary Beth Crane, and we have two people missing. Right. We don't see members of the public, so we will go right into the agenda here. Are there any agenda changes or requests or deletions? I do have something I'd like to add, which would be a little discussion of some succession planning. After April, there will be 3 commissioners going off the library commission. And so just to put our heads together to think of some likely candidates or to discuss some of the qualifications that we would see in a candidate. I realize that council makes the appointments, but people do apply, and we can certainly ask people if they're interested, sound out people with their interest, and so can the staff, I would hope.
I would suggest that go under Commissioner Reports and Questions.
Okay. Sounds like a good place for me, to me. So we'll take it up there. Okay, we've started the meeting. We are agenda changes and so forth, and down under commission reports and questions, we are going to add succession plan or succession suggestions, since there are 3 commissioners going off the commission in April. So we haven't gotten to the minute yet.
I'm sorry, the traffic is awful today. So there were no other agenda changes, requests, or deletions then? Okay. So let's start. Item number 1 is the approval of draft minutes from the meeting on December 19th.
Yeah. I found a typo on page 4, the last word. It should be was 5% of citywide IT spending, not spend.
Are there any other such changes or? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes with that one correction.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So minutes are approved. Item number 2, update on Mitchell Park and Main Library building projects.
Great. Tonight, again, I have Matt Raschke here from Public Works, and he will handle the presentation and answer any questions. Although I did want to note before we begin that at places you have a news release, a press release that was sent out today, letting you know that next Monday, City Council will consider an agreement for a new contractor on Mitchell Park. They've announced that they are considering Big D Pacific Builders, and Big D is the company that renovated the Art Center, and it has been an on-call contractor for the project. So that will be on next Monday's council agenda.
And I mentioned it's a consent item, so they don't assume that it's going to be controversial.
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Raschke, Senior Engineer with Public Works Engineering. And I have some updates to the Mitchell Park Library and Community Center project and Main Library projects this evening. And as Monique mentioned, the Monday night council will be considering the takeover agreement with the surety company, and they've tentatively agreed to hire Big D Construction to complete the work at the Mitchell Park Library and Community Center. The last time, after the last time I was here, we had anticipated that Flintco was to obtain temporary occupancy, temporary certificate of occupancy by the end of November. That didn't happen. Then they were it indicated that they would get it by the end of December. That didn't happen. And then on January 10th, the city terminated the contract with Flintco, and then initiated the proceedings with the surety company to get the work completed. And now we're at the stage where that's about to get finalized. I've been aware of the thousands of basically unfinished or defective items that need to be completed on that project. I do have some pictures to show you how close it is being done. It's just it was quality control issues and just code issues that prevented them from getting the occupancy and bringing the project to a final state. We'll go through some photos and then I can take some questions. Here, so we're just going to kind of walk around the building. There's the green wall, and these were all taken relatively recently. We go across. Here's the main entrance. See the Stoller art piece near the entrance. Under these blankets are the stainless steel owls, piece, the bollards that are situated such that children can actually kind of sit on their tails as they wait to be picked up at this drop-off point. And the over here to the right is the cafe entrance to the community center. And here's the side of that where the cafe is. You can see the stonework. The landscaping is all in. And then here's the sign to the children's area, the kids' place, is labeled with a gift in honor of Becky Morgan. And you can see the main racks, all of the bookshelves up here on the nonfiction area. Going down through the new materials area, looking down into the children's area, and there's the children's area, waiting for books. Then we have the courtyard, and the large oak tree is doing very well, better than it's been in years. Another view of it with the multi-purpose room over here. I believe the last time I spoke with you, they were redoing these glass doors into the multi-purpose room, and that's been completed. So that's one of the corrective items that Flintco managed to fix, and got that. The only thing missing in this picture is the pillar here between the doors, but that's since been installed. This was one of the earlier photos that I have. It's from mid-November, and you can see the signage on the sides. And then inside the multi-purpose room, where some finishing was taking place. And then here you can see the last photo I have is the green roof, which is doing quite well. So again, as Monique mentioned, there was a press release issued today, and the staff report for Monday night is available. And I have a copy of it here, and it's online. So that's my update for the Mitchell Park Library. Pause and take questions on that. If there's any discussion.
I had a couple of questions. Months ago, supposedly the project was about 97% complete. I don't trust Flintco. I don't think anybody at City Hall trusts Flintco anymore. So I just wondered if the things which were identified as complete had been verified, that there weren't any problems with them and they had to be reworked, and if we really are at 97%, and do you have any estimate on whatever the number of completion is, what the timeline would be for finishing it up and actually making it occupied space?
The agreement with the surety, they wanted to provide that schedule after this agreement is executed on Monday night. In the staff report, it estimates that they believe there's 3 to 4 months worth of corrective work to be completed for the things that are just not up to quality. It's likely probably toward the end of summer that it would actually be open to the public, with the completion needed by the surety's contractor, which will most likely be Big D, and then the move-ins, moving in all the materials and staff equipment.
If it takes, say, 4 months from the time the contract is awarded, then we're talking about the end of June, when the staff can start moving into the facility and getting it ready, which means it won't actually be open to the public until sometime in maybe mid to late July, approximately.
Correct. That would be based on that time frame, yes.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get an idea of where we might be.
And to your question about whether Flintco actually completed things, they did go through, and things that Flintco claimed were completed were actually not. That was part of the reasoning behind the actual termination.
Okay, thanks.
So, in other words, there was a list of things that Flintco said were completed, and then those things were checked and they weren't, or?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was an issue with, I think, failing the water test with the glass, something. Where is that? That seems so major.
Yes, that was one of the major items. I don't know the full resolution of it, but it's I believe that they identified a corrective action for that. I don't know if it's been fully complete.
Okay, well, yeah, and I think the others were things like maybe wiring or something. It just seemed like it was those things, personally, to me, seem major.
It's yes, it's a lot of things. So and they just were not making the progress that they promised.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
I just have a question. You mentioned about that we've already finished 97% of the work, and there's going to be agreement between city government and the AD. How much you can release about the agreement? Does the agreement will include some deadline for the Big D to complete? And how come if we've already complete 97% of the work, but the Mitchell Park will not reopen until June or July from now? So.
The project, the building permit hasn't reached a stage where they it can be actually occupied. It hasn't gotten that temporary certificate of occupancy, so there are still code related issues that need to be fixed on the project. So those are serious issues that have to be completed first. The agreement is actually with the surety company that was the bond, basically the bond company that Flintco had obtained in order to contract with the city in the first place. So the bond is like a guarantor for completing the work if either Flintco had gone bankrupt or in this case was terminated for default. So the surety is basically going to hire Big D, and Big D will work with surety in this case and complete the work.
So is it possible you can release more information about the agreement? Because I mentioned about, do they put some deadlines for the new contractor company to finish? Because, it's really hard for us to believe that if we've already completed 97% of the work, and the left to 3% will take a couple of months to finish. And we've waited for so long, and I don't know if there's any other acceptable reasons that we can talk to our residents and our patrons. So could you give us some reasons?
Well, the agreement at this point does not set a deadline, but what it does, it continues the liquidated damages that are accruing every day, which had accrued since Flintco missed the original contract deadline. And I think in the staff report, it's up to like $1.6 million, I believe, and that'll continue to accrue. So the surety has that incentive to get the work completed as quickly as possible. So that's the incentive, is that the liquidated damages are continuing to accrue.
For your information, it's an item that's on the agenda, and here's the staff report. The actual contract will be signed by the Federal Insurance Company and the Fidelity and Deposit Company of Maryland. They're the people who are agreeing with the city. And schedule of performance, substantial completion is estimated at June 30th this year. But then there's 3 months after that for post-construction. And I don't know what that allows. I haven't read the details of the contract, but if you want it, it's in the council chambers. But anyway, that's consistent with what you were saying, about 4 months.
And I did want to mention that the takeover agreement, the whole description of it, and the staff report are available on the city website. I mean, the takeover agreement is public information, just as any contract would be. So it's not the city that's setting the contract, it's the surety. So the surety guarantees completion of the project. They're basically like insurance for the bond to make sure that the money is spent and the building is completed. So that's their role. And part of what they had to do and why it took such time was to go through the building, item by item, to see whether or not it had been completed. So even though 97%, it was stated 97% complete, but that was not actually true, and there are things that need to be fixed. They were not done correctly. So that's why this takes longer. So 97% was Flintco's, estimation of where they were, statement. And now we are going back, and the list has to be as complete as possible because Big D is taking over a building that has things that are not right. And there may be, when they open the walls or the floors or whatever to correct something, they find something else. So, I would rather have them get it done right than for us to have to go back. And I think the post-construction work in the new buildings that I have been in, there has been punch list items and other things that once the staff gets in and uses it, we realize, that was installed backwards, or there's something not quite right. So I think that there's work like that will be done. Correct?
Correct.
Does that answer better? Help you understand? Okay.
Does the post-construction work happen after the occupancy permit is?
Yes.
So it could happen simultaneously while you're moving books in and.
it could happen once we've opened. I mean, there
Okay.
will, and because in most buildings in downtown, for example, we had a year-long warranty. So we had a year to ensure that things were working correctly and have the contractor come in and fix them if they weren't.
So then Mitchell Park would have such a warranty.
Yes,
then.
that's in the contract.
Oh, okay. Well, just from personal experience, I had some remodeling done in my house, and yeah, you put everything back and you start living in it, and oh, yes. So I think it's a good thing that there is the year warranty. It's
Yes,
life.
and Big D was the contractor for the art center, and they came back and fixed some things that were
Uh-huh.
in a similar fashion
So you've had good experience. Sounds
with Big
like.
D. Yes, they were also one of the pre-qualified bidders for the main library project.
Uh-huh.
They weren't the low bid.
Uh-huh. And I realize you're constrained to take the low bidder.
I was going to ask, because I don't know how long ago these pictures were taken, but has the city done sort of, I don't know, whatever maintenance work that, like for the gardens and things like that? Because it's been months since it was cut off from the construction company. I don't know if there's some issues with liability that you're not allowed to let city maintenance in until there's an occupancy permit, but I'm just wondering if the maintenance that was needed has kept kept happening since this time.
Yes, in fact, the Turner the Turner Construction is the construction manager for the project. In fact, the action going on Monday night includes an amendment to their contract. They have been still at the site and keeping an eye on things and maintaining what needs to be maintained. So the landscaping is still in good shape.
Okay.
And where it's been possible for vendors to come in and do work that included, they had a separate responsibility, for example, like AMH or something like that. Turner has worked with those vendors but a lot of times the work that needs to be done hinges upon some construction element being done. So there's been a limited number of those things, but that work has happened.
Just to elaborate on that, in the report that I referenced includes an additional appropriation of $740,000 for Turner to oversee the completion of the project and the 1-year warranty, I assume. So that's, Turner staying on the contract and being involved is included in this project, and the proposal will be adopted Monday night.
Is this hearing that? I'm just curious. I'm not 100% sure of the circumstance, but there's clearly someone that, as a layman who's not in the construction business, if someone is the construction manager and then a project doesn't get built correctly, aren't they somewhat responsible also for that? I'm just wondering, giving them more money, if there's some sort of, well, we're giving you this money just so you stay on and don't walk off the job, but we might, you might be liable for some of this. Is that the case?
In the future, when the claims occur, in the say the legal aspects of this project are not, probably haven't even fully begun at this point. The focus right now is on getting the actual project finished, and Turner is in the best position to do that for us because they've worked on the project since day one, and have the history with everything, and especially where things were defective, and they were notifying Flint Code as things went on that this is defective, you need to correct it. So it wasn't as if they were completely ignoring these issues. It was, they were documenting it and notifying the contractor, and it just was falling on deaf ears to the point where we were able to establish a clear default.
Okay.
For this part.
Yeah, based on a couple of occasions I've seen in the past, if you have somebody like Turner who's overseeing the project and the contractor does something really awful and it causes major problems. To give you a horrible example, contractor's building a bridge and the bridge collapses when the first truck goes over it. Then the oversight organization would also be liable. But if it's something fairly minor, like, gee, they didn't cook all the wires up properly, then the oversight contractor probably wouldn't be considered liable. So in a case like this, I would say that if it's really big, then yeah, Turner would be also asked to fix it and cover some costs. If it was a minor thing, probably not. And that's based on what's happened over the past 20, 30 years. It's been very rare that an oversight contractor has been held responsible for anything really going wrong. Because most of the time, there aren't any really major things that go wrong. They're kind of minor.
Is there also the update on main
I
library?
also have an update for main library then, if we're ready to move on. So the work on main library is progressing on schedule and on budget. In fact, we've just issued the first official change order, and it was actually a negative of about $6,500. And that was primarily due to some electrical work that we had our utility department agreed to install a portion of the secondary electrical feed to the building, and we're also changing that out from copper to aluminum, and that with that change and some of the other minor field orders that have been done since the project started, the net was a negative. We do have we anticipate some positive, or some extra costs coming up related to the interior ceiling work. That the historic ceiling is a double floating ceiling, and once a lot of the insulation was removed and everything was exposed, we saw what condition it really was in, and it was not really sufficient for the current building codes. Needs to be seismically braced, and that was just impossible with its existing condition, which we hadn't anticipated. So we're probably looking at about $120,000 change order for the interior historic ceiling. So that'll be coming up, and then we also found after the demo was done that the ceiling near the staff entrance was sagging, so that needs some corrective framework to be done. It's probably on the order of 40 to 50,000, but it's well within our contingency budget. A lot of the other minor work that could be considered extra we were able to cover with what we call allowances that were built into the contract, which save us money because they don't include the markup that you typically find on change orders. So we've used some of the allowances to make some corrections, and it's kept us in good shape. Since I last talked to you in late October, we've completed the roof restoration, and the slab inside the library has been completely removed, reformed, and radiant floor heat tubing was installed, and then that's the new concrete was poured. They also are well along with the program room addition. I've got some great pictures to show you of how that looks. It's along quite well. And the site work is also coming along this weekend. There was the press was notified that the main driveway between the art center and the library will be closed for the next phase of site work, which will create the interconnection between, for the campus between the Art Center and the library. And that fence will go up late Friday, and then the site work will be done, and that, per the contract, they're supposed to reopen that at the end of June. So in the meantime, patrons of both the Art Center and the temporary library will have to use the Embarcadero entrance and exit into the parking lot behind the Art Center. So I have some photos we'll go through. This first set is a progression of the interior work at the slab that I mentioned. They're all taken facing the fireplace, which one of the project will actually install an electric fireplace insert that will look very good. The building does not have a gas service, so we weren't able to use a gas insert, but we found a very nice electric insert that we're going to install, and it should look very warm and cozy. But here you can see the slab. The existing slab was completely removed, and this is the rough end for all of the electric boxes that will serve all of the furniture that goes in this area. The seating there'll be tables with hookups so people can plug in laptops and make connections, and also some of the catalog machines that'll be connected nearby. And then as we go through, this one's a little dark, but you can see they laid down the base rock and then a felt paper over top of that. You can see the orange electrical boxes, and then there's a better picture of that. And then there was a plastic layer, and then this is the rebar, the reinforcement bar that strengthens the concrete. And then on top of that, these black lines going this way are actually the radiant floor tubing that where the fluid that cycles through all of the it's like a refrigerant kind of fluid that will heat and cool the floor based on the geothermal wells that were installed. And then it completed the pour, and that's the new concrete. And here you can see them installing the concrete over that radiant floor tubing. And there's, just as it was curing, they were finishing it off and smoothing it out. And then this is some of the electrical conduit that was installed under the program room, and you can see the concrete forms and rebar that was going up for the columns and walls of the program room, which is reinforced concrete. And then here you can see the result of some of that. This is near the entrance right here. This is steel framing that will have a skylight into the lobby. This is the entrance into the program room area, and this cutout right here is where the and here you can see the steel roof framing for the program room, and all the reinforced concrete pilasters, columns, and roof over the other parts of the program room addition. And here, this is a picture of what the program looks like this week. You can see they've already got the metal decking on the roof, and it's coming along quite well. In addition, this is an almost finished of some of the features of the program room, the glass storefront, and the reinforced concrete columns and frontage, and this is a brick veneer that was chosen to match the historic brick in the building. This was done to ensure that the finished product will be satisfactory, so that they can use these mock-ups to work out some of the kinks in the installation. we found that some of the gaps were not acceptable. So they're still working on the mock-up to get it to a point where we'll call it acceptable, and that then the finished work will have to meet or exceed the quality of this mock-up.
So a mock-up is kind of like a little, I guess, a segment or a test where you use the actual materials that you would be using in the real building, but you'd be putting them together to see if they work the way they're supposed to when they're together. Is that what
That's
a
correct.
mock-up is?
Yep. It's a very effective tool. This is the other entrance of I don't know what. I guess it's the this cutout right here is where the book drop will go, where they've removed a portion of the terracotta wall, and some of it will be put back, and then this will also have the automated materials handling opening that patrons will lay the books on, and it'll take them in and check them in. So portion of the terracotta wall will go back, and then the rest of it, the surround around those book drops, will be a stainless steel with an etching to match the terracotta, so it'll look very nice, and it'll complement the historic terracotta wall.
I'm sorry. So I thought, wasn't that? Can you go back one image? Wasn't this an outside area before?
Yeah, this is an outside area, and it will remain an outside area. This particular book drop is before you enter the building.
Okay, but you're saying there's an automated materials handling behind this, which is going to be outside, or it's
inside. What's still being installed is an actual wall that's right adjacent to the terracotta. You can see part of it right here. This orange.
Okay, you are enclosing it. It's not going to just be.
So there's another panel that needs to be tilted up. So it was an interesting construction because they had to create the panels on the floor and get them basically nearly 100% ready, and then they tilt them up and brace them and connect them. So it's a
okay. But I just wanted to confirm, this used to be an outdoor area that you're roofing over, or no?
No, this was this part was an existing area that had a previous a wall that was removed because it was no longer in good shape.
Okay, but there's still, I mean, you're not plugging those bricks, right? So there's still going to be sort of a little gap between.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yes.
Right. All around the building, that terracotta is right up against, in many places, right up against a wall or with a small gap. And that's what's going to continue.
And doesn't it create maintenance issues with water or, buildup of leaves and dirt and other things?
We've this concrete curb that's below it has been carefully waterproofed and sloped to try to prevent a maintenance problem. There may be some maintenance required where they'll have to use maybe a leaf blower to get it out, but the outside of this new panel that they're installing is a special rain screen that's very waterproof and colored to match the terracotta as well.
Okay, I'm just wondering because I guess it's an existing maintenance issue that you're just trying to improve while keeping the historic integrity of.
Correct.
Yep.
And also not disturb the terracotta as much as possible. Like, this is one of the few areas where we've disturbed the terracotta. This is the foundation of one of the new group study rooms. You can see the size of it in relation to this worker. And most of this will be framed in glass except for the one, it's about almost a 5-foot wide panel where a large LCD monitor will go that can be used for the group study of much like downtown libraries conference room has. It's a touch screen monitor with a wireless keyboard and mouse attached. People can make presentations to their small group. And this is the rough grade of the connector between the two parking lots, the library and the art center, called the VUNERF. It's the pedestrian, the mixed use zone, basically for cars, people, and bikes. And it's you can see the base rocks laid down there. In this photo, you can see they've begun the formwork for the concrete, the decorative concrete that'll create that aisle. And you can see also the new fence that's going up to separate the public garden from. And another shot of that, you can see it's a very nice. I think it's redwood fence. It's very plumb and straight. I'm very impressed with the construction. And then here you can see the fence in the background with this new concrete seat wall that was just installed. This is part of the landscape in the outdoor area where people can sit and work on laptops with Wi-Fi and just enjoy the outdoors while reading a book. The finish has not been completed yet. This will get sandblast. They'll sandblast this concrete to make it very nice, and it has built-in reveals. They're grooves basically to try and prevent skateboarders from damaging it or using it, because it won't allow the grinding that they like to do. And the last few photos are of the new shake roof, which I think just looks fabulous and went in really well, and we were very lucky with the weather this year to get it all done. And as you can see, we removed the skylights, and I think it's back to its historic appearance. Any questions?
What's your best estimate of completion?
We're still on target for. We're expecting to get occupancy in September and reopen by December.
Okay.
So that with the period in between when we'd move in all the books, furniture, and get everything actually working for staff and the public.
Okay.
I just think it's exciting. At least there's one good thing for the drought, isn't it? Because it allowed you to build a roof without a problem.
Yes.
Just a quick question. You mentioned there were skylights that were removed?
Correct. They were installed in I think around 1987. And so they weren't part of the original construction. So the Historic Resources Board and the Architectural Review Board had both recommended, if possible, to remove them. And with the lighting, we're restoring the interior lighting with LED fixtures. It's the actual same fixture, but they'll be retrofitted with LED lights, and they're quite great. There's no lack of lighting inside, and it's with the switch to LED, the overall electrical usage of the building will be much lower.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. The replacement of that source of light.
I think we are very glad that the whole construction is on schedule. But just a reminder, Monique or Eric, well, we have a notice because Matt just mentioned about they will have different phases of the construction, like there only would be one entrance from Embarcadero. So will we have a notice in the temporary main library?
We've already done that, yeah, and as well as with the Art Center.
I can't remember. When is the main library scheduled to be completed?
Yes, it should be reopened to the public in December. We expect the construction to complete by the end of September, and then there's the move-in period where we have to get all the books and staff furnishings in and get everything set up, make sure that the automated material handling system is functioning, all those. That it's the same sort of period of time needed for the Mitchell project. It's that move-in time frame.
Are there any items? I mean, it sounds great. Very happy to hear that main library is completely opposite from what Mitchell Park in terms of a project. It's a relief, actually. But are there any things that are, that just like, is the materials handling system, is it, on order and going to be delivered on time? And like, are there big things that still need to happen that may delay things?
The materials handling system has been ordered. That went to council in, I think, November, and we've already got the actual drop, the automated drop that goes in the opening that I showed, so that the contractor will know will get the hole perfectly right, because he's already got it on site. And some of the procurements that still need to happen are the standard furniture, custom casework, and the office furniture. And we just received that will go out to bid in March, possibly next week. And the time frame is such that we should be still right on schedule. I don't see any other.
Well, I guess the real question is: are there any unknowns that are sort of? I know that's hard to answer in that way, but like for example, you discovered that when you took down the ceiling that a lot of rework needs to happen there.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But are there projects or pieces of the project still at that level that haven't happened? Because it seems like a lot of it is okay. Now you've torn down a lot of the inside stuff. It's just rebuilding it. Is there any? I guess the question is there any digging that needs to happen in an unknown area or tearing things down still?
I think we're in much better shape now. The last unknowns are about to start next week with the second phase of the site work. That's, in my experience, where whenever you're digging something that's been buried for some time, that you can find things that are unknown. But even it would have to be maybe an Indian burial ground or something like that. that would cause a significant delay. The site work usually isn't a major hurdle. The interior finishes that were, that's the phase of work we're in now. Mm-hmm. And that can be problematic, as we found with the Mitchell project, but we have a very responsive contractor, SJ Amoroso, a very dedicated superintendent who points out quality issues before we do. He basically, says if there's something about the mock-up that he doesn't like, he's very open about it and says, that's not acceptable to us. We're going to fix that before we say it. So it's nice to have a contractor like that on board. So I don't anticipate any schedule hiccups with the work that's ahead of us.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully we get to hear, the next time we hear about it, it's ready to go. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, item number 3 is the update on the Orange Boy project.
Yes, I wanted to provide you with a brief update about where Orange Boy is in their process. You remember that Nikki came and gave, Nikki Harbor-Frankert from Orange Boy came and gave a presentation about what their plans were and their scope of work were to accomplish before they began their work. So you have a schedule of where they are to date. And some of the larger attachments we didn't include in your packet just because they were over 100 pages long. So we didn't want to do that. But if you really are super keen to see it. We have it in the office. So, yes. Is there the other handout, the report? Did they all have that? Okay, so you have, oh, good. You do have the project status report. Okay, so the status report. So I wanted to take you through the status report and briefly give you a little bit of information and what we will do. Actually, Orange Boy will be here to work with us on March the 5th, which I know is next week, but they would be willing to have a special meeting if the commission was available that evening. They would go through the data with you if you wanted to. But we will also have them come back in April at the next regular meeting and do another presentation. So either of those options are available. March 5th may not be possible. But before we get to that point, let's just review the summary. So, as you may remember, Orange Boy was going to, and what they've done is take local demographic data. They've done some market analysis of who Palo Altans are. They've overlaid that data with voter registration information. They've looked at library use data down to very specific levels. They took, census data, all of that, and compiled information about who we are as a library and who our community of users are. They then worked on, they then had spent time in each library observing library use, watching how people interacted with the facilities, what their major activities were while they were there, and did exit interviews asking people about their use of the facilities and what was going on, why they were there that day, all of that information. Then they did a stakeholder survey. They did an online survey, and they conducted stakeholder interviews with community members, both users and non-users. And the next thing, so after compiling all of that data, you can see that they created clusters. So there is a group of 11 different specific groups or clusters of library users. We also looked at non-users as well, and they do have some data about that for us. But one of the ways that they focus our attention is by focusing on who already uses us. How can we increase use amongst those groups? So you can see that there are 11 different groups by person. Now this is, and the graph that you're seeing here is system-wide, and the percentage of makeup for each different group. The clusters are created by identifying the primary use for the facility or for the library, and we also have this for each individual branch. So, for example, bedtime stories at Children's Library is huge, much larger percentage of their base than some of the other groups. But this is looking at it system-wide. And then it also looks at what are their secondary uses. So they may have come in for using Wi-Fi or something like that, but while they're here, what else do they use us for? Do they happen to pick up a book, a DVD, something like that? Do they happen to interact somehow? And so these 11 clusters, you can see what the primary behaviors are for each of them on the next page. Then the library, the group of library staff who are working on this project are discussing, well, what does that mean? And we're looking at it a little bit more in depth, and we'll get to that. But for each different cluster we have, what what are the percentage who have children at home who are under 18 in that group? What are what education levels are in that group? And there are certain elements that for Palo Alto, there's not as much variety. For example, how many people in each group have less than a bachelor's degree? Different, lower percentage than most communities throughout the country. Income levels, another one. So the things that really distinguish the groups are the age level of the people involved in the group or the cluster, and again, primarily how they use the library. So what we are doing is looking at this data and considering what does this mean for the services that we offer. For example, one thing has sort of emerged, audiophiles, for example. They borrow audiobooks. It's a relatively small group. It's 2% of our current users are considered audiophiles. Downloading music, listening to audiobooks as a primary activity, very, very small percentage. Yet we invest a great deal of money because audiobooks are very expensive, either as a downloadable format or in a bunch of CDs. So are we really investing the right amount of money for that particular use when it is a relatively small group? Are there other maybe more efficient ways for us to provide that information, or is that something that continues to be a need? So as professionals, we're looking at what are trends, what things are going on, and that, of course, influences how we approach this. But this gives us solid information about who's using the library, what their needs are, what they're going to perhaps want going forward. And then Orange Boy will create a dashboard so that we will be able to put put the priorities into place and actually provide either programming or activities or make changes to the collection. And then we're able to track how these different groups use the library to see if we actually increase use based on the management decisions that we make. So for us right now, there was another thing I wanted to add, but I guess it slipped my mind. So do you have any questions about where we are? Because we're not done yet. We're not to the dashboard phase yet. I can hand that back to you. We are at a point where we're still considering who are the clusters, who are the users. And again, they cover, all age groups, and, it's a really comprehensive look at who makes up the users. And the occasionals, which you see are the largest group, those are only occasional users. So there's likely to be a high return on investment for investing in that group and finding out if there are ways to serve them specifically. I will say that almost every group, if it was not their primary behavior, a secondary behavior was browsing like the new books, browsing the bookshelves. And I will say too that nearly every group wanted easier ways to download ebooks and to download, materials, magazines, all of that. And the ironic thing is that's not, the interface is set up by the vendor, not the library itself. So a greater investment perhaps in tutoring, one-on-one help, assistance, that kind of thing. So it's not only collections, it is services and how we provide them as well. So what questions can I answer for you?
I just think this is really exciting that you have a way to match your budget dollars and your staff time according to where you're going to get the most return in the future then. I'm just curious about databases. You know, my information is old, but my recollection is that they were rather expensive, you know, like Gale or EBSCO. Are they used, and how do they fit into the pie chart?
Into the
I guess
clusters?
That's not what you call it, but anyway,
Right.
these groups, I love the names, by the way.
So, a group like the Digitarians, which is a small percentage right now, those are relatively younger users in their 20s and 30s. They do everything online. They have smartphones. Actually, one of the nice things about each of these clusters is that they also asked, you know, about smartphone use, whether you had a tablet, whether you had a laptop at home, you know, just sort of what level of technology you had. So we would understand the market penetration for those devices, which could, you know, inform website development. Is it automatically, you know, mobile? Is it more likely, you know, we can think about those things. So a group like the Digitarians, they're doing pretty much everything online. But again, I would venture to say that needing to have the download and the access be easier is probably, that may still be a barrier to a lot of use. We do include the electronic resources in our annual data. So on the open data site, on the city website, you can find access, you know, the number of users for databases. I do have to say that each vendor counts differently. Some count by the number of times you go in, the number of each time. Some actually count based on account for a certain amount of time that you're logged on. So there's a variety of metrics that the database vendors use.
Okay, yes. My working life, I dealt with that. I guess it's still not resolved.
I actually was going to ask about the fact that it is difficult to get a lot of the e-materials right now. It's just because each vendor decides to do it differently. And I think fundamentally, as a library user on a lot of these services, you're not really a first-class citizen. It's kind of like a hack almost, that and hack not in the like we're going to steal your money, but just they sort of found this weird way to kind of, well, okay, we'll support libraries, but really fundamentally our product is to, like, Zinio is trying to sell you magazines, but we, still the library's paying Zinio or some vendor a lot of money to allow us to get access to these same magazines for free. I don't have to pay for it personally. It's sort of a city thing. So it is clear that it's something that the vendor needs to change, but I don't know how much control you're going to have over that, or how much influence you can have to say, we demand a better user experience, because it's, you do these 3 things over here and then go refresh on your device and then you can see the thing, kind of. I recently started using Zinio, and it's a great thing, but it's hard to get it working, and someone that's not technical, I think, was just going to give up. So, and that's just one service, all of the other things. So I'm not surprised that the usage is so low, because I imagine if people hear about it, they'd be interested, but then trying to get it to work. And training, I think, is important, but there's only so much training you can do, because if people cannot figure it out on their own, then it's like you can get a book from the shelf with your hand and open it, and there's no manual that's needed. But
that's true.
If it's not that easy, or almost that easy, then it's just not going to be as widely adopted, unfortunately. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm just saying, I understand that,
Right.
Also, I'm saying don't, just because it's only 2% of, of double feature or the audio files that are doing, online things. Well, maybe it's because only those people got it to work.
Right. The audio files are, yeah, they're actually the audiobook users, but
Okay, but I mean, I don't know if it included an e-audiobook
could,
as
yeah,
well.
right. Could definitely have done that.
Okay.
Yes, I have a question. So these survey and these results basically represents the actual user when they visit our different branches. So I would like to know, what about the virtual library in this part? Is it only included in the digitarians, or it also goes to like audio parts?
Yeah. So the surveys were not only to people physically in the library; they were to people who were at home. These were sent. First, they were sent, I think, a postcard which alerted them to the fact that they were going to get a survey, and then the surveys followed. So these were not distributed inside the library. They were not conducted inside the library at all. So yes, the electronic use extends to many of the other groups. It may be a secondary use of the library. The group called Dining In, those are people who come to use the public computers, the Wi-Fi. They're there really to use the electronic resources of the library, but in the library, and so they're not their secondary activity may be related to books or something else, but they're not there. So it touches in every group, and nearly every group had a fairly high adoption rate for smartphones. Some had a high adoption rate for tablets, not as many. And so I think that if you're looking forward, they may not be in the habit of using the electronic resources yet, but that may be coming soon.
So, will they consider to do the virtual library this part? Will they consider doing that, or give you more data or metrics to let us know if we want to provide virtual library service, and which direction we should go, or what kind of service we have to enhance, something like that?
So the development of the e-branch is underway as a separate project. They're working with a consultant to develop the RFP for a consultant, or for the company who then builds the e-branch. So the actual what we're thinking of in terms of a virtual branch does not exist yet. Right now it's what is on our website. So yes, it does break it down into music, audiobooks, ebooks, magazines. Are many of our users somehow also, downloading movies on Netflix? Are they? Those are all aspects that we're looking at. So they can make recommendations, but their recommendations will be based on trends that they see at other libraries, what they're seeing in terms of the library world throughout the country, and based on what they know about these different clusters. But it's not prescriptive. They're not going to say, oh, you need a language database, you need this thing. That's part of what they empower you to do with the dashboard, so you can make adjustments to your different services and see how it's then reflected in use. Because long term, you want to be able to use this to tie it with budget and make decisions. We don't have an unlimited budget, unfortunately. I wish we did, but we want to make the wisest decisions that we can to have the greatest impact.
I suspect that a lot of users actually fall in more than one group. I can see teens, for example, could be Bright Futures borrowing teen materials, and they could also be dining in, working and studying in the library. And some of them might also be staying connected and using the computers. Now, which one ranks first, second, or third can vary from month to month with even the same person. So there's a lot of flexibility in here, I would think. And the problem with that is, we have this pie chart with the percentages of who are in different categories. And I suspect that some of the smaller categories, the ones that are 2, 4, 5, 6%, it looks like, gee, these aren't very popular, but these are actually additional interests of people who might be in that other category as a number one priority. So
Actually, no. This is the categories that they're in. That is their primary interest.
yes, but I'm saying they can have a secondary interest which falls in one of the other categories. And over time, this month they might be in Lynn's category, but something changes, and 3 months from now they switch.
It is possible, yes. That could happen, though. In each cluster, again, they're generally based on a certain primarily a certain. Well, you're right. You could switch if you, for example, became a consultant all of a sudden. You decided you wanted to use the library's resources to help you run your business. That would certainly change which group you fall into. And that's why I mentioned the occasionals. It's possible they are actually in another group, but we couldn't capture them at this point. We suspect that because one of the things that Leo has been wanting us to count forever has been Wi-Fi use. And that's one of the things we can't do. So that is actually a large data element that is not included in this. We have no way of knowing right now. Once we have the enterprise class Wi-Fi installed, we'll be able to track that. And we may find that the distribution does change. There may be a much higher rate of dining in, but they're in there to use the Wi-Fi only because they have their own device. And right now we can't count them. So these may change, of course. Yeah. You may decide that all you want to do is read. You're giving up all of your electronic devices. And so then you may become a page turner.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is, the digitarians, people who read ebooks, is 4%. And my feeling is that more than 4% of the people who go to libraries use ebooks, although it might be their second or third preference, not their first one. And when you talked earlier about, gee, is this where we want to spend this much money? I don't know, because it might be that instead of only 4% of the users really being interested in ebooks, it's 15%, but the other 11% are one or two other things that they do more often. Maybe because the ebooks they want aren't available. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting start, but I don't think it's fully definitive.
So that's exactly what this is. This is a start. This is data to include. It updates a lot of the information that we have about our users. We didn't have this level of information. We do know what their secondary and third uses are for each cluster, so we know where the overlaps are. The data that we have is 2 full pages for each individual cluster. We have a great deal of information that's not being presented here because it took us multiple 2-hour review sessions just to understand the data. So you will see that when we do a larger presentation. This is just to give you an early look at the clusters before we've made any decisions. But what this does provide you is focus. When your resources are limited, you can't be all things to all people. Where do we invest the staff time, the budget money, the space allocation? What makes the most sense in terms of either the largest number of users or the way that we allocate people? Those are all different considerations. And again, these are, 2 temporary libraries. And so this is also a snapshot of what it's like right now. And we will be able to look at what the changes that the new facilities bring to how people use the library as well. And that would be reflected in the dashboard and the data we collect going forward.
As an example, one of the things that's highly used, bedtime stories, children's books, it's 15%. And, Palo Alto has been very interested in providing facilities and books for children for many years. So we have a children's library. So that shows that what we're doing in that area is valued and used, which is nice to know. Do you have a comparison between our library and other library systems and see how these clusters might be different for Mountain View, Menlo Park, Los Altos, anybody else?
No, because this is a service that each individual library would contract with, and their clusters would not be the same as ours. These are not standardized. These are custom related to what appears in Palo Alto and who makes up these individual groups. You could compare, demographics. You could compare income and education level, and you could compare it to the use and draw some parallels. But this is really meant as a highly individualized management tool, and it will help inform the strategic plan that will be developed with this as one way of measuring the progress and what changes we make.
So, in other words, then you to use a buzzword, you're making data-driven decisions because you now have this refined data that is unique to Palo Alto and designed for that. And when Orange Boy was here and put it together, yes, you have 2 temporary facilities. Now, is there a tool that as you open the new buildings going forward, you can somehow match up the categories to the new buildings to see if they change?
So the clusters themselves are not likely to change. It may be that something emerges that's a different use because the buildings have introduced something completely separate, and maybe they're either in the non-users or they're in the occasionals, or maybe something combines. So that dashboard monitoring the changes going forward would be the tool that would help us develop that, because all of the management level staff will be trained, and the staff will be trained on looking at the data as it comes in and as we add it to the dashboard. And then we also get the guidance of Orange Boy for a full year to help us understand, to make sure we're following it the right way.
Okay. So then this dashboard, then does it change as circumstances change?
Yes.
It's dynamic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is a new concept to me, but I think it's exciting. I mean, you have real tools to deploy your resources and know if you're matching it.
Yes, absolutely.
From my opinion, I think it's a very good start. But there's something that I really think that even though they divided into 11 clusters and they have the definition for the primary behavior, but when you look into the primary behavior, you find out there are overlaps. Like if you say the audience, if we say that we spend so much money on the audio books, because it's only 2%, then we have to reconsider: do we have to spend so much money on audiobooks? But to look at other things that probably it's overlap with other categories, other clusters, like borrowed DVDs, double feature. 2%. But DVD, if we consider DVD as the audio-visual material, it's the dependable. The dependable is 18. So it's overlapping. So when we try to reach a decision whether or not which category should spend more money, sometimes is it possible that we can cluster fewer, not so many, because it's overlapping and it is confusing. At least to me, I think you say the audiobook, and what's the definition of audiobook? Is it the same as the DVD or audiovisual materials?
No, an audiobook is a book that's read. And I think in this case, it was not even the downloadable audiobooks. I'd have to go back and double check. It was their actual CDs where an author or a performer reads the book. And they've been a staple in libraries. They were books on cassette for a long time. Mary Beth will remember. Books on tape. And then they went to CDs, and they're often multiple CDs. And you're just as I told Bob, you're correct. There is overlap. It just because we make a change doesn't mean we will lose that audience. I use that as an example because they're very expensive, these sets, and it could be an element of marketing. It could be an element of we don't use them in programming. I mean, it's more than just, I was just using that as an example. I'm not saying that was a decision made, but it's one of those things that you need to look at. And again, when you don't have unlimited resources, at some point you do have to make a choice. So if we were to look, when you see the clusters, their primary behaviors and then their secondary behaviors, you'll see that for nearly every group, the secondary behavior is browsing the new bookshelf. You know, that was almost universal. So there are many similarities, and it could be that a cluster goes away because that technology no longer exists, but they are absorbed somewhere else. So.
To Monique's point too about marketing, down the road, this potentially opens the door for us, and they have some tools for doing this to really tailor the services to the individual users, so that if we know they fall into one of these clusters, then we can meet their needs even and personalize that even more. So like when they're getting library cards, we might be able to find out information about them, and that would help inform us as to whether or not they fall into which of the 11 clusters they fall into, and then we can connect with them better through email or through other services and market directly. Because once we know that they have an interest in X, then we'll be able to provide that and make them stronger customers so that they won't just be occasional anymore. We'll really be able to go after them, connect with them.
Anything else?
When is the next update to us? You said is either next week or
you could have a special meeting with that as the only agenda item on March 5th because they will be here to work with us. Otherwise, we could have we would set aside a large chunk of time at the April meeting to review more, and by then we should have a working dashboard. So there may be more information if we wait, but if you want to see more information about the clusters themselves and understand the data used to inform that, they'd be happy to meet on, I guess it's next week, Wednesday. So it's entirely up to you.
Well, although I'd be interested in hearing what they have to say next week, I think we might be better off waiting until April and getting more data and spending a fair amount of time on it at the meeting. I just think we'll have more information in another 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree, because then we could see the dashboard and you would have been living with it a little bit. And
We would have at least been trained and had to have some practice with it. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like it's pretty unanimous, so no need to rush a meeting next week.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so now we have an update on the summer reading and library outreach report.
Yes, I would like to introduce Jenny Jordan, the manager of Children's Library and the Youth Services programs for the library, and Cheryl Lee, senior librarian.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to be here, see you all again. And as you know, I'm Jenny Jordan, and this is our Senior Cheryl. And this evening, we are going to tell you a little bit about some of the projects and the programs that we've been doing over the last week, and some of the programs that we're going to be doing. I have to start again. Anyway, so we decided that we were going to we wanted to look a little more deeply into how we were affecting our customers through summer reading. And with this in mind, we the California Library Association ran an outcomes-based summer reading program, and we decided we would use their program to evaluate our program. And one of the things that we did was a group to focus on, and a lot in line with their program, we chose an underserved group in the community. And that group that we chose was the Springboard to Kindergarten program, which I'm not sure if you know about, but it's a program in Palo Alto for preschool for children who are going into the Palo Alto schools who have never had preschool before. And most of those families, English is their second language, and many of them did not have library cards, familiar with the libraries. So we went into the classroom at the beginning of the summer. We did a survey with the parents. We visited with the children. Cheryl did a story time with the children. We told them all about summer reading and signed every summer reading. And then at the end of the teachers were very helpful. And at the end of the summer, we surveyed them again. And through this, we got some outcomes. And as you can see, these are some of the results from those surveys. 100% of that group obtained library cards. 100% of them visited the library over the summer. 100%, many said that they would return to the library after the summer, and they had a better understanding of why it's important to read with their children. So the other thing that we did a little differently was we decided that we would have a unified summer reading program including all ages. And with that in mind, we decided to have some family events. And we had 3 events. The summer kickoff event, which was actually a collaboration with the aquatics department of CSD. And that was held in Rinconada Park, and it really got us off to a good start. We had a summer barbecue at College Terrace Library halfway through the summer to try and reignite people's interest in summer reading halfway through the summer. This was a different kind of event with carnival games, more directed to families with young children. And then towards the end of the summer, we had Flick and Float, which was again in collaboration with CSD and the aquatics department. And we watched a movie while floating in the pool. And if I recall, it was Finding Nemo. Is that right, Sharon? Finding Nemo. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we're really now beginning to focus on adults as well as children and teens. And with that in mind, we had more programs for adults. And I'm hoping if you didn't, that you will, this coming year, come to some of our programs. This shows another of our wonderful senior librarians, Deborah Anthonison, and she is doing a book talk, talking about all the books that she loves and she wanted to share, which have cooking and eating in. The theme, I should mention, for summer reading was Reading is Delicious. So that was a very popular program. We then, Cheryl got creative, and this shows a program which was actually a tour for library users of the California Pizza Kitchen. with information of how you can get the most out of your restaurant experience. So that was something a little bit different. We had the ever popular STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and math, again for the teens, as well as some food-themed programs. And I did want to mention this program, which was actually developed by Jessica Goodman, another of our senior librarians. She got a grant, a Eureka grant, and she used it to develop a program connecting seniors and teens through technology, and the teens actually tutored the seniors on how to use different technologies. And at some point, maybe she will do a presentation on that project. It was an extremely good project, very touching. Some of the it led to the teens feeling very valued, and also they really enjoyed. The seniors really enjoyed teens. I remember one slide she showed of an older gentleman who had managed to Skype with his family somewhere abroad, and I mean, he had tears in his eyes. He was so thrilled to talk to his family, see them. So, and we had our usual children's programs. This was Science from Your Kitchen, and we also had our usual Wacky Wednesday performances. So, this coming year, the theme for summer reading is Pause to Read. And we had our first meeting for the new summer reading program starting in June, today, actually, and we already have lots of exciting ideas for this year. Wanted to sneak this slide in because this is one of my favourite programs that we do at the Children's Library, our own Pause to Read, where children read to therapy dogs to practice their reading. And it combines three of my favourite things: children, reading, dogs. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cheryl, who has been focusing for the last year on some outreach and collaboration with our community.
Jenny. Thanks, Monique. I just want to introduce myself again. My name is Cheryl. I'm the Community Engagement Outreach Librarian for the Palo Alto City Library. It's a very long title for a very simple concept that I work on. Three things that I work on. It's called POP programming. Programs, outreach, and partnerships. That's all my job is. So here's our credo. Here's what we do. We do non-traditional, non-literary programming. I focus on big crowds. We're not your grandmother's library. And I actually do a lot of partnerships with a lot of corporations, nonprofits. In fact, I have some good news to tell you. In 2013, we established and maintained 33 new partnerships within the city. And so this is just our statistics for 2013. So we did 131 programs. That's two, if you're a statistician, 2.5 programs per week. And we served over 14,000 customers. So this year, we've done over 10 programs each month. So it's 2.8 programs per week. And so just to let you know what I've done so far, so we took our most popular children's program, Story Time, right? And it's the bread and butter of children's services. And we host 8 story times per week. And we average around 500 kids and parents per week. And so we took one of our favorite programs, and we decided to give it like a tour, like a road show. Think of it as like going to a concert with your favorite artist. Now, I'm no Prince or Britney Spears, but we take it on the road. So this one, and then this one was also at Pottery Barn for Kids. And I'm really excited to report that March, we're going to be at the Tesla showroom. So I'm really excited about reading stories to kids in one of those Tesla cars. Fun fact you didn't know about me, I'm allergic to alcohol. But when I did drink, I would go to the bar and order just the same drink over and over again. And I never really noticed the nuances between ales, hefts. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe other people are like me. Maybe they order the same drink all the time and they never know what types are out there. So I said, let's partner. See if the brewmaster's interested in doing a program to educate the public on everybody's favorite drink, beer. And he was actually, yeah, we could call it Brew University. And I said, that's it. That's the program that we want to do. We hosted 3 programs in 2013. Introduction to beer, beer geeks for those who are know a little bit more about beer, and then beer and food pairings. So I'm happy to report we had 209 graduates that year, and we're on track. We just did, Eric was there, we just did home brewing, and then we also did seasonal beers around the world. And then I have another continuation that I'll tell you about later on. So probably back in 2011, I had gotten really inspired by going to vintage clothing shops and secondhand stores. And I thought, you know what? Why couldn't we replicate this in the library? And so I said, I'm in children's services, and these Palo Alto people have a lot of supplies, and they just use them once, they throw them away, or they give them to their neighbor. And I said, you know what? We could do this at the library. Why don't we have a back-to-school swap? We'll have paper, pens, notebooks, backpacks, clothes, toys, and they could swap them with each other. First year, we had around 50 attendees. The second year, we had over 100. Everything went in 10 minutes. It was crazy. I have never seen anybody grab so much stuff and just pack it into the car. It was amazing. So as you will see with a lot of my programs, I've kind of built onto them. So I thought, okay, it was a little crazy in 2012. Why don't we try something different in 2013? So thought, Halloween costumes. You only use them once. You're never going to wear the same costume again. That would be bad faux pas, right? And so thought, you know what? We could do this Halloween costume swap. And it was really successful. I couldn't believe it. First year, 180 costumes collected, and 180 kids got gently used costumes. And so we're going to plan on doing this again. Our corporate partners were Blossom Birth Family Services, our Community Services Department, and Zero Waste, our green department. And this program is near and dear to Jenny's heart because she gave me a challenge, and I always love challenges. So I have my goals and evaluations, and Jenny goes, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to do a program where you have to replicate it at every single library. And I went, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden, I get an email from Monique from American Libraries. I said, there's a Zoo to You program that they're doing in Washington, D.C., where they bring the zoo to the library. I said, wait. We have the Junior Museum. We could bring them to the library. And I can't believe how successful that program is. Every time the attendance is just, I email my email list and immediately those programs just go. It only takes maybe 10 minutes for the program to fill up, and we have 30 people come to this program. And so near and dear to my heart is the parenting program. As I had told you previously when we did this presentation, we had this customer who came in, and she was just so frustrated with her child, and she was just, nobody gives you a parenting manual and tells you how to be the best parent in the world. And so that was 3 years ago. And I took that suggestion and I was like, we could partner up with Parents Place. And we partnered up with the Parents Club of Palo Alto Menlo Park. And we actually did the program. And we've been doing it for the past 3 years. And I still can't believe the amount of attendance that we have. I mean, we have, I think, over 500 people that have been to at least one parenting program, and we have at least 50% who continuously come because they want the information. And I'm going to share one email that I got. I get a lot of emails about this program thanking me for doing this. So one of the emails that really touched my heart was, I'm going to read it to you. We are having a difficult time as my sweet young husband has rectal cancer and has thrown our world into a tailspin. He is doing chemo, surgery in Stanford. It's been a very challenging process, and all of us are sad that he has to face this journey. But this is much bigger challenge, thus the value of your lecture, keeping calm and carrying on. That touched my heart. That's why we do these programs, because we want to be relevant to our customers and we want to help them out. And so speaking of helping them out, I get a lot of complaints from parents about kids and behavioral issues. And I've noticed that lately, the formality in our society has kind of gone down. We're less formal. And I thought, our community services department told me they were offering a tea party etiquette, class. And I said, that's interesting. And I thought the whole etiquette concept, we could bring it back. And so we did, I thought, hey, we'll try this class, this child etiquette class. Could not believe we had 30 spots. It filled up in 5 minutes. It was crazy. And in those 5 minutes, I kept getting this waiting list of 20 to 30 parents and then emails galore begging me to have their kids be in the program, and just went crazy. And I had one email from one customer named Tan, and she goes, how come you're offering this just for kids? My teenagers are awful. They need help. Please help them. I said, okay, we'll try to do that. And so I emailed our etiquette expert, Lynn Dang, and I said, is there any way possible that you can offer a teen etiquette program? And she said, yeah, we could do that. And so we offered it actually a week and a half ago. And it was so popular, filled up to the brim, and our community services department decided to offer it as a class, an ongoing class, because of that customer. That's what we mean by customer-driven programming. And so the other part of my job, as I told you, part 2, is outreach. So our main objective, we have 5 branches, is to bring the library outside of those 5 branches and 20 walls that we have there, and to reach a wider audience and scope, and to let them know about the library. As Monique and Eric were talking about those occasional customers, we want to make them more than just occasional. This is how we're planning to do that. So one of the programs that we've done, we partnered up with Simon Mall Group. They own Stanford Mall, and they've invited us to a lot of events. This one is the back to school event. We checked out, I think, over 40 books at that event. It was just crazy. And we issued around 20 library cards. And I love this one. This is Gamble Gardens Day. It was a great venue and just really, really cool. And we met a lot of new customers that we didn't have before. And then we also get invited to preschools and different types of groups. And so this one is the Stanford Business School, I guess MBA school, mommy parent group. And so this kind of merged my business background with my library, background as well. So I really enjoyed this one. And then we also did the California Avenue Trick or Treat Carnival. That one had 1,500 people at that event, and it was really great. We checked out a lot of material. We did 2 story times. It was a really great event. And then Eric joined me on this one. We did the Martin Luther King Day of Service, and we saw a lot of great, passionate teens there, and it was just a great event. Signed up a lot of people for library cards, brought awareness to a library. And so I'm going to have Jenny help me out with the future events. So some of the trends that we're seeing, civic engagement is a big one. Eric, I know, is hot on civic engagement, and so am I. More collaborations, more outreach, and as I was watching Shark Tank on ABC, Mark Cuban said experiential programming is going to be the future. So hopefully we'll start doing that soon. So Silicon Valley Reads has been going on for the past month and a half. We've had a lot of great programs headed by one of my coworkers, Lori Hastings, and she has done private screenings of Out of Print. We had Robin Sloan, the author, and this March we're planning to have Todd Parr, which is one of my favorite children's authors, and Chris Grabenstein there as well. So we want you to check our events calendar because we've got a lot more events coming up for that program. And this is Trimmer Tuesdays. If you can see, this is Downtown Library. And so what we want to do is we want to offer tricked out versions of your favorite fitness classes. Now, I belong to 24-hour fitness, but I can never get into those fitness classes. And we wanted to do fitness classes that weren't really average. So this one was Hang 10 Yoga. So we combined the two most common things in life, the beach and yoga, and we put them together. The one previous to that, we did an 80s flashback Zumba program that was really, really fun. And actually tonight, just ended, I was over at Lucy Stern Community Center because I was hosting our first Dollars and Cents financial seminar. We just did one on tax diversification strategies just in time for tax season, and I was really shocked that we had 41 people registered for that program. It was pretty good for our first time doing it. And my financial advisors, Vanessa and Andrew, did an absolutely wonderful job over there doing that program. They got hit with a lot of tax questions. So parenting program we've done for 3 years, as I told you. But I've realized that through these parenting programs, it really isn't the parents. It isn't really the kids that are the problem. It's actually the parents that aren't agreeing. That's the real fundamental issue. So we decided to do couples and relationship untherapy. What that is for those couples who are having minor issues with their relationship, we're offering a program where they can kind of get closer together and try to work out their differences. So we've got therapist Jim on board, and we have a great relating Jen and David on board to do that program, and so I'm really excited about that. And then so you have your egg hunts, right? They're always in April. It's boring. What we're planning to do is we're going to dump those eggs in the pool, and those kids are going to have to dive for them. So that one's happening April 19th. And our community services, the interim manager right now, Sharon, she was like, Cheryl, I've got this really crazy idea. Why don't we do this daddy-daughter dance? I've been hearing about it a lot. And I thought, okay, interesting concept. So I kind of pulled our customers. I have a select group of customers that I kind of talked to, and I said, what happens if the library offers this? Would you guys come? And they said, yeah. So how am I going to get the library into it? So what we're going to plan to do is we're going to plan to give a book so that the dads can read aloud to their daughters, so that it's not K through 5. And then to kind of expand our Brew University, we're planning to do Brew Day. What that is if you've seen the show, the Food Network, Chopped, what they do is they have a mystery basket of ingredients, and these chefs have to make a dish based on those ingredients in the basket. So take the same concept, but put it with beer. We're going to give these home brewing clubs, we're going to have 4, We're going to give them a mystery basket of ingredients, and they're going to have to make a batch of beer based on those ingredients. And that'll be in June. And then, as Jenny told you about our Flick and Float, we decided to take our Flick and Float to a whole new level. And so we noticed that there's Friday the 13th in June. So it'd be kind of cool to show Friday the 13th in the pool. So that's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to let Jenny talk about the Common Core standards.
Okay, so as many of you may know, California has adopted the Common Core curriculum standards. And so the library is hoping to support the schools in this. And at present, I'm working with the collections division head on a project to support the schools with regard to this initiative. The area of collections, there is more of an emphasis on non-fiction and also on subject crossover of different subjects, and also in programming. We're still in the planning stages at the moment, and we are getting input from the schools, the school librarians, and are hoping to put these ideas into practice soon, certainly for the next school year.
So next up, we have the Moon Festival. So Jenny put me on assignment 2 years ago to do the Lunar New Year Festival, and I was kind of less than pleased to be put on the project because I go, Jenny, come on, putting the Chinese American librarian on this project. But I found out through the process, I actually had a lot of fun. I actually learned a lot more about my culture. And so I was kind of saddened this year that because of the Mitchell Park reopening, we weren't sure if it was going to open or not, that we couldn't really do the Lunar New Year celebration this year, which brought out thousands of people over the last 2 years. So I said, you know what? I was the master of ceremonies this last year for the Moon Festival for the Parents Club of Palo Alto Menlo Park. So they've got 1,000 people at this Moon Festival at Mitchell Park. Maybe we can do this there. So we are in talks right now to collaborate on this event. They're really excited to partner up with us, and we're looking forward to working with them. And then again, dumping those eggs in the pool, we're going to dump those pumpkins in the pool. So we're doing the floating pumpkin patch prior to our Halloween costume swap this year. And then.
So another program in collaboration with the schools. So Cheryl and I have had this idea for a while to have the library open after hours so that high school kids that are studying for their finals can come to the library and study. And we're going to ask some of the dogs that come to Pause to Read to come to the library and be for the teams. So the idea is that they will help to calm the anxious students. So we're looking forward to that one too.
Okay, so I've had this idea in my brain for the past 4 years, never been able to execute it. But this year, we're going to execute it. So I've always gone out, Black Friday. My parents, my grandmother, we've been doing it for years. I said, maybe we could do this in the library. The number one complaint from customers about libraries is that they cannot get what they want when they want it in real time. That's why they go to Amazon. That's why they go to Barnes & Noble, because they can't get their bestseller instantaneously. We're going to change all of that. So we're going to host Black Saturday. So Black Saturday is going to happen before Black Friday. What we're going to do is we're going to open up early, not too early in the morning, maybe like at 8 o'clock. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the new releases, the bestsellers, the new DVDs, the newest CDs that you can't get your hands on normally at the library just for that one day. And we're going to have doorbusters. So every half an hour, what we're going to do is we're going to have a certain number of titles available to our customers in real time, hidden from our catalog, can't reserve them. You have to be there on that day. That'll be like a 2-hour program. And then Jenny?
Okay, so at the Children's Library, I don't know if you know, but we have a library fairy who lives at the Children's Library. And we have a little mailbox that the children can write to the library fairy. And the library fairy replies to them if they leave their address. And we actually have a volunteer who's the library fairy. And anyway, we received an email from a customer that her daughter was so excited about the library fairy that she built the library fairy a house. So this is actually, I think it's at College Terrace. She built a little house for the library fairy, which I thought was really cute. Okay, and I guess that's the end of our presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm just really excited. I think it's wonderful. I want to say thank you to both of you. It's the kind of thing that I've always dreamed about for libraries. I'm really glad you're doing it. Thank you.
I wanted to give you my congratulations and thanks also, because a lot of people say, well, libraries are getting obsolete. People don't read books anymore. There's nothing for people to do. But the sort of things you're doing and the way you're getting people involved show that that's not true at all. The libraries are a real vital part of the community, and about some of the things you're proposing were really ingenious. So I thought, yeah, I think that it gets people involved, gets people interested, and the children's programs are an excellent way of getting the children involved early. And as you know, if the children are involved by the time they're 4 or 5, as they get older, they just get more involved, and it's really very effective. So, very good work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say I'm very impressed about what you're doing, and thank you very much. Not just thinking of children, but also seniors too. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say I actually recognize some of the kids, and I think that one of those story times, because they're in my son's daycare. So I was looking for him, but I couldn't. Maybe he was not there that day. But yeah, thank you. The variety. I'm really amazed at the variety of programs, because I hadn't heard of maybe at least half of them. I'm just wondering, are there ways? Is there a single place to go to find out about all these programs? Is it all on the website? Is it the calendar?
Yes, so all of our programs are on our calendar, except I have to tell you, this year we're doing something different. So we have social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. So we just started our Twitter page probably like a month and a half ago. And so what we're doing is we're doing kind of social media first. And I've been previewing to our customers that, hey, you know what? That email that you normally get from us, you might not get it as quickly as social media will get it. So we tried out our first program. We did a Lego program. Anytime you put that Lego program on there, I mean, parents, kids go nuts. And I have to tell you, so we put it on our social media site first, and we got around 19 registrations for it. But we still had 6 more spots. And I was kind of worried. I was like, well, maybe I'll email it to all of our parents. Boy, did that backfire. I emailed it to around 600 parents, and I got emails galore. How come you didn't tell me about this? How come I thought I was your favorite customer? Hey, you guys, first come, first serve. And so, yeah, we're going to be doing some social media first, like our egg hunt, which will only have 50 attendees for that one. So we're going to do our most popular ones that way. But most of these things you can find on our website and on our events calendar, but they get filled up very quickly. I mean, we have no problem filling them up, as Monique has probably told you. I mean, as soon as we send out that email, it's filled, and I get sometimes nasty emails. How come you won't let me in?
Well, the other thing I was going to say is I'm really excited to, considering the constraint we have on, public facilities, really excited to see what happens when we do have these 2 new facilities back. One of which is so much bigger than it was. So that's going to be interesting. And, thank you very much.
No, we're ready. We were born ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the update on renaming of main library.
At Places tonight, you have a copy of the staff report that goes to City Council on Monday. And this basically gives the background information as to how this process originated, the different steps that have been taken, and brings the your recommendation, your motion as the last item in the discussion. So I leave it up to you to have any discussion or ask any questions.
I was going to ask, have you gotten any feedback relating to this? Are there any, I don't want to use the word rumors, but I mean, do you have a sense of, what the council might do? Have you, I'm just curious if there's a sense of that.
No, the agenda was published. We have not had. I don't have discussions with them. I'm sorry that Councilmember Price is not here tonight. I won't have any contact really with the mayor or anyone until we go to the agenda review, which happens Monday morning. So there's not.
Okay. I'm just wondering from the city manager or any other.
No, I've not heard anything.
Okay.
Well, I just really appreciate the work that you've been doing on it and getting a whole copy of the staff report, particularly since my printer's kind of wonky. Monique knows that, of course, I wrote an email to the retired librarians and had it forwarded to you. And I also sent that email with the information to Greg Betts and Rob, and I'm going to myrtleize his name, DeGoose, who is in charge of the Rinconada long-range plan, asking if he would forward it to the Park and Rec Commission because they're working on the entire plan for Rinconada, and the library facility is going to be a piece of it and is going to be mentioned on the wayfinding signs. And at the moment, the Park and Rec Department has 6 maps around the area with on the stands are permanent, but you can put any kind of display like a map or a diagram or notice or something in the stand. So they have put up a map of the Rinconada cultural area, which Leah was the first to find. You sent us a picture. That. Okay. That shows, that actually names the Old Main Library as Rinconada Library. And there's 6 of them scattered around that area, and the staff is collecting public comments, the desk staff at the Lucy Stern Center, and they are compiling any comments they hear. And then at the end of this year, the staff will review any comments, and they want to make it friendly. So, and I think all of that was in the email that I sent to the retired librarians and had forwarded to you. And I didn't send it to you, Eric, but you probably get enough email. And if you really want it, I'm sure Monique and Evelyn can find a way. I've been a little bit shy in contacting my council buddies. Sent them an email in January and didn't hear, and so I'm steeling myself to contact them again about this, and I would just encourage you all to contact your council buddies.
I'm just wondering if us, either reading a portion of the letter or just presenting, a summary personally at the meeting would be even more reinforcing. I plan to be there, but I'm not sure, in what way would be the most helpful.
You can certainly present or speak as part of public comment and, identify yourself if you're representing the commission. That's certainly appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm planning to be there. And I hope that the other commissioners will, that we come to, support the resubmission of this name and just be there if they have any questions, a brief public comment.
One of the things I will predict is that if they decide to name the library after an individual, between the 9 council members, they will nominate at least 12 individuals.
I think the way I understand it, if they were to go for an individual, it would be a process for them because they would need to work with the Palo Alto Historical Association for some possible names, and then go back and forth as to, how that particular person would relate to the library or their distinguished contribution. So if the council were to decide to name it after a person, they would have a lot of work to do because they would, it's mentioned somewhere that they would need to at least touch base with the Palo Alto Historical Association.
Unless they chose to bypass the policy. I mean, they could choose to override the policy. That is certainly something that's possible.
Thank you.
Well, I guess there's not much more we can. There's a letter. It's process is in motion, and see what happens on Monday.
And if we show up with our bodies, what more can we do?
Yeah.
It's late. Looked up the agenda on the web. It's supposed to come on at 9:10.
Which could be actually depends on what's before that, I guess. But there is a presentation connected to this that you will give, or
I will just give a brief overview of what's in the report, just a short summary, since we've already done a presentation to council, done a presentation to policy and services, well, briefly, and then just be available to answer any questions.
Okay, so unless anyone has anything else to say right now, save your comments for Monday. And we can move on to the library director's report.
Great, thank you. The report was attached, nothing specifically unusual included. I don't know if any of you had any questions about anything on the report itself, but as you can see, we're doing, as you can see from the presentation today, we're doing a lot. This highlights, different activities and trainings that we've conducted or been a part of over the last couple of months. So I'll answer any questions if you have them. And attached, as always, are the various pieces of correspondence. And that's pretty much it.
I've got two questions. They're related. There's an ILS RFP and also the eBranch RFP. Mm-hmm. Is that a consultant that will work on the RFP or consultant that will implement the eBranch? And I mean, I know they're somewhat related because...
Well, they're separate. They're separate. The integrated library system, that RFP was released to the marketplace last Friday.
Okay.
And we had the non-mandatory vendor meeting to answer any questions this morning by phone. That is due back at the end of the month, March 25th. And once that happens, following the same process as any RFP would follow, there's a committee that scores them, and then we will do vendor demos, and we'll extend an invitation to those of you who've indicated an interest in the past to sit on them. There'll be probably full-day demonstrations for each vendor. We're guessing, though we're not sure. The eBranch RFP, we are hiring a consultant to help develop the RFP. So that one is not the actual RFP yet. It is the development of the scope of work and the must-haves, nice-to-haves, those kinds of things.
I had a couple of questions also on the tax assistance for low-income and seniors. How many participants did you have in that? Was that popular or no? I'm just curious.
That happens every Saturday for about 8 weeks. Last year, I think the group filed about 80 to 90 returns and assisted many other people. I believe there were 20 people the first Saturday this time. We won't know the full statistics until the end. VITA is done. It's an outside organization to assist, and the volunteers are law students from Stanford. And so it's not the library staff providing any assistance. It's this specially trained group, and they're available at the downtown library every Saturday during tax season.
And then in the meeting you had with the San Mateo County Library to talk about media efforts in Pew Study, how did that work out? Were there any actions taken as a result of that? Any decisions, or are you just still working with them?
We're trying to pursue that story, and it didn't. We made a number of efforts, but we did not so far have any success with it. But it's just also an effort I see long term of building relationships with people in the media on it. So now they know through those efforts a little bit more about who we are. So perhaps down the road, if they feel a need for a story that has to do with the library, they might be more likely to contact us.
Just starting it out, and that's a work in progress.
Right.
Okay.
So, one of the goals of it is to make the media aware of the libraries, and by using the focus of the Pew Study on libraries. Is that how it goes?
That's exactly right. The Pew Study is very comprehensive. It talks about how relevant libraries are, and the hope was to show both a local and a regional benefit for the area through what we do, and trying to basically bring the stories that Cheryl and Jenny brought to you to a larger audience, and really, because a lot of people recognize the importance of libraries, but through the study that the Pew did, they don't know the details. They don't know really all these activities that we're doing. So a lot of times reporters like a connection between something that's national, regional, and local. And so we were trying to use that connection with the Pew study.
Any other questions?
My question is probably not listed on your report, but I just read all the emails from our customers, and they mentioned about the Link Plus service. Would you tell us about the status?
Yes. So Link Plus had been offered through Mitchell Park Library, and in anticipation or expectation of the move, we stopped the service at the beginning of November. By the time we were ready to reconsider restarting it, the city IT department had upgraded their firewall, which interfered with the FTP communication with our server. So we haven't actually been able to communicate with Link Plus, and it required that a third-party vendor basically write a whole new fix for that, unless we found a workaround, which is not as stable necessarily as having this fixed. It's our intention to resume this service at Downtown Library, and I'll also pursue 5-minute parking, for library use only in the lot, because finding parking around downtown is insane. And the hope is that we can reestablish it soon at downtown with some short-term parking to allow pickups to be a little bit more easily handled, and keep it at downtown until we reopen the library. And the intention is for it to resume back at Mitchell Park once Mitchell Park opens. Unfortunately, I don't. Yeah, we're working. It's actually a technical issue at this point. And some of it is completely out of the library's control. We're working with IT to get it solved. We think we have, we think we have a workaround. We need to test it. We don't want to start it and then stop. But I was saying to Eric this evening before the meeting, this is probably the least popular thing I've ever done in my library career. That, people have been very vocal about the use of Link Plus. We do want to make sure that they know they can go to Mountain View and Sunnyvale and get library cards and use Link Plus there. We know that's not ideal, but it is an option.
About the College Terrace Unlock event. Could you tell us about that? What happened?
Oh, that Thursday was an all-staff meeting at Downtown Library. So all of the library staff were, regular full-time staff were at downtown doing training, and we have a meeting once a month as a staff. And we believe that there was an issue with it being unlocked that happened with deliveries. So the delivery staff, there are other people who go in and out of the buildings when we're not there. They have alarm codes and things like that, and it was just a one-time event that was a mistake. So we appreciated the library user who was trying to call us, even though they were upset they couldn't reach anybody by phone because we were all in a meeting. But nothing was missing, and there was no issue. So
if you have a meeting, that means in that library, if there's only one librarian in College Terrace Library, does that mean there will be no one over there?
Thursday mornings we don't open until noon, so there aren't staff in the mornings when we're if it's a library that's open 11 to 8, or, I'm sorry, noon to 8, there's not going to be anyone there in the morning. There's no reason necessarily. So our schedules are not as firm as some other departments might be. Right. So, yeah, that one of the reasons that we are closed on Thursday mornings is to allow for training, to allow for staff to meet. We don't have other times when we can all get together.
Yeah, I was impressed with all the training that you were able to offer the staff because you do have that Thursday morning closing. And just from my own working experience, I know that meetings can be really helpful because you really, when the libraries are open, you're focused on the public. And so it's harder to coordinate with each other. Did you hire a new circulation supervisor? And is Rose Sebastian, how does she fit in? Or is she the circulation supervisor?
Well, Rose is a library services manager,
Okay.
and she is eligible for retirement. And so this is part of a succession plan. As we look to train and ensure that people are, adequately trained for leadership positions. We did hire Chad Helton. Chad is he was a night circulation supervisor at Stanford and has worked in academic libraries his entire career. He earned his MLS from Chapel Hill. And is a great addition to the staff.
On a slightly different topic, on the Cal Humanities grant, what's the status of that? Did we give them the information they needed and they either show them another contribution like from ProPal or in-kind money that satisfy the requirements? They said that we had until basically the end of this year to complete it and get the money. I'm just curious where we are.
So the Cal Humanities grant is it's a program that will be offered in the fall. It is a California Reads Public Library grant, and this year the theme is War Comes Home. It's a theme about veterans returning to the community. And there will be a number of programs. It will be similar to Silicon Valley Reads in that there are libraries throughout the state that have also received this grant. The staff time invested and the materials we purchase, I think, will easily equal the $5,000 match.
I remember I read something. It seems that we have a collaboration with the Santa Clara, the Mattel County Library. Could you tell us about that?
So that was what Eric was just talking about with the Pew Internet study, Pew Library study. Did you want to know him to repeat what he said?
Sure. This was an attempt. It's often challenging to get a reporter to pay attention to anything when we're trying to compete with so many things out there. But this was just an attempt to build a relationship and just let them know about the report, but also what we're doing here locally and connect that with the national story and a regional story. And so hopefully, if it didn't seem like they were interested in pursuing it at this time, but at least we're on their radar screen. So we're in their contact list, essentially. I mean, that's the most we can hope for at this point. And so we partnered with the other library systems so that they could tell their story as well. I think it helps when you collaborate. But in this case, so far, we haven't made any progress. But hopefully down the road, they'll remember us if they're doing a library story. Come back. You're welcome.
Well, on that note, I mean, I saw the article that's right in front of you. I did see that in the paper, and I was surprised because I hadn't heard of the program. So, was that something that was that you reached out to the media, or is it sort of organically discovered by, the newspaper?
That was both. Cheryl had so for the one with San Mateo, we were reaching out to other reporters. It wasn't this one, but we've had meetings with other outlets, and so those relationships help. So it's never easy to tell exactly what sparks the interest of a reporter. That's why it's important to always be trying to have these conversations with reporters from many different outlets, and then hopefully they'll remember you and come back. And in this case, that worked out for Cheryl.
Great. So, okay, it looks like we can move on. The council liaison report is probably not going to happen tonight. And so are there any commissioner reports and questions?
I thought this was kind of interesting. Mountain View is doing something like Make X, and this was in the Mountain View Voice last weekend. Their library is working on building three-legged seats and having the participants do their own design and construction, which is something that libraries don't normally do. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if we want to get involved in anything that detailed. The Make X that we're doing is working fine as it is, but it's it's an idea if you want to get into something a little different than what we've been doing in the past.
Yes, I think it's a good model. Actually, I wanted to mention that Mountain View does have a 3D printer. They do, but what they do, because they don't have space, is that they do individual programs about sort of maker. Different maker kinds of things. So there was a felt, something making things with felt. There was another thing about each individual thing in a way that can be done in a in a simple room with like sort of a kit of things, rather than doing something like Make X, which takes up space and needs that kind of thing. So that's how they've adapted to the tinkering and maker needs for their community.
Any other reports or questions?
I should mention that I did attend the full Palo board meeting last month, and they're still doing well, and still selling a lot of books and getting money for the library system. Of course, they're holding it back until we have some place where the books can be put. But I think they'll be giving us a nice contribution this year. And a little bit later in the year, I will kind of nudge them to give us a little more than they normally do when Mitchell Park opens, and we have the ability to really absorb additional contributions of whatever.
I would like to just update, I guess, about the Library Foundation. We actually, the foundation, of course, has met its fundraising goal, as you know. But since the Mitchell Park Library, particularly, its opening has been put off to the future, they're still keeping it open if anybody would like to donate some money, and donations do come in. So they did not have their usual meeting last month because the people wanted to go to the mayor's State of the City address. So there will be a meeting, I believe, next week. But maybe you all saw the full page thank you at the Palo Alto weekly. Let me see. That was like for Valentine's Day, February 14th. Wanted to thank our donors, and there's a lot of names there. It's been so long since I reported, probably you've forgotten that they even had a newsletter, but it came out in the fall. So that's my report for the foundation.
So let's move on to comments and announcements.
Actually,
Oh, sorry, the
you have-
secession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Going back to commissioner reports and questions, discussion about the future of the LAC.
And here is a flyer, I guess, from the city clerk's office, right? That you all know that now recruiting is done twice a year in April and October, and so our turn is up in April, and there are 3 of us going off the commission. And I was talking to a community member who is pretty much retired now, but talking about people who might serve on the library commission. And as I was listening to, I was thinking of business people, partnership people, and I did not realize that Cheryl has built so many partnerships over these years. But maybe some representative from some of the groups or businesses or both that she is reaching out to, who's a member of, who lives in Palo Alto. They experience through Cheryl and through the programming and with the kids and all, they are experiencing the library, say, in a different way from the way we do. One of the characteristics of the Library Advisory Commission is that it's diverse. We have, people in various stages of life, raising families, people in various ages. And so I was thinking that this might be a dimension. And I'm looking also at you, Eric, because I'm sure you work with the outreach effort that, say, y'all are doing. Maybe the staff has some ideas of people who might like to serve on the Library Advisory Commission. And I know that, we commissioners can certainly ask people that we know. My circle at this point is rather, I feel kind of limited, but I think we should all put our thinking caps on. But I'm thinking that the staff in its outreach efforts probably see a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And maybe some of those people that they work with would be good commissioners.
We'll definitely have to bring that up with Cheryl. And I just think, I'm just recalling from the last time we met, which is maybe the reason why you were also raising the question about this collaboration with the Pew Charitable Trust, with going after that report in San Mateo. The hope was then that we'd be able to pursue a story and then try to get one of you as representatives into that story to talk about what you do as a way of, and unfortunately I just didn't, since we met last, we just haven't had success with that angle. But I think your suggestion is a good one. I think we should ask Cheryl about her connections. I mean, she has been doing this far longer than I have, since I've only been here for a few months, and so she has really excellent connections. So that's a very good suggestion.
Also, perhaps businesses that use your services. Quite by chance, I find myself back in the work world again, but I'm doing research through a contract agency for the Hewlett Foundation, and I could not get. Was supposed to have connections with some of the other libraries, and I had this really, been a while, kind of a hairy, scary research project for me, and I went to the Palo Alto Library databases, and I pulled up a treasure trove of stuff that was right on point, And I've been thinking about, I'm leaving, and what are my steps to do in these months. And then I was thinking of how I actually, through I'm in a different place, really using the library and being very grateful it was there. So I asked the commissioners to put your thinking caps on, and you and Cheryl, and to recruit.
Yeah, it would have been helpful if the Mitchell Park Library had already opened, because I guarantee you there would be plenty of opportunities to have large groups of people who are very interested and excited about the library all together when you can drop a hint that there are opportunities to get involved. Have you gotten any applications already, or it just opened? So, okay.
Yeah, and you may, like, for example, I belong to Palo Alto Rotary. You may belong to other service organizations or other groups where there is an opportunity to mention this. So, I plan to mention it at an upcoming meeting. I will have to pay to do so, but I will, be happy to do that on behalf of the library. And I think that as much to the extent that you're able to mention it to people who do live in Palo Alto, that would be excellent.
I'll put a note out to my neighborhood association, which is very close knit. It's very small, very close knit, but there's a wide range of. It's very diverse.
Yeah. Well, I guess one thing that we can do as commissioners, or soon to be ex-commissioners, is just be open if someone has questions, has interest, but is not sure what happens on the LAC and wants to talk. I already emailed, I think, Evelyn, saying, I'm open to be contacted if, someone is interested. Because, they may be interested, but we won't have a meeting until after the application is already due. So, I think that's something, just be available is one thing, but of course getting applications in the first place is important.
Yeah, I'm available too.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to comments and announcements. I only had one comment, which is I've tried a lot of these e-resources and have been happy once I got it working, but still, there's a long ways to go. Specifically, Zinio is a fantastic service. I wish there were more titles on there, but or at least available through the library. But once you get it working, it's great.
Good.
You literally don't have to subscribe to a magazine because you just have it.
Yes.
And the night you can read it on your computer, you can read it on a tablet, or probably on your phone.
Yes.
I haven't tried it, but it's a little
yes,
small.
I think so.
So
but I feel your pain, because there are many times where I have called the IT, information technology and collections people and said, okay, I've spent 45 minutes on this, and if I still can't do it, the library user gave up like 30 minutes ago at least. So, I know there's nothing we can do about it in terms of the vendors. I think some of the vendors are beginning to recognize that they need to make that better and easier to use. There are some services where it's like a touch screen, push the button, and it automatically downloads. And so we may get there yet. It may be a little bit less painful, but once you have that bad experience, it's difficult to try again, I think, too.
I also, maybe I should have written to someone, I guess, I don't know if it's Jessica Goodman. The instructions were not 100% clear what you needed to do. So, if anything, I could provide feedback as a customer.
That would be great.
So,
we will put you in a room with.
Although now that I got it working. Well, now that it's working, I don't want to touch it. And but
I had the same issue. There was a URL that had that the vendor had changed or the third party had changed and couldn't get it to work. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where you're paying a lot. I mean, the city is paying a lot for this service, presumably, yet they haven't made it sort of a first-class customer within the platform. And so I wonder what sort of things what you could really do about it. And if we are telling them, hey, you know, this is too complicated, you have to make it better. You know, maybe the actual access on the app has a library version so that you don't have to log in and on your computer to get you have to go through the library to get the magazine and then go back to your device and, you know, make it refresh somehow, which is not obvious, to then see the magazine that's available and then download it. It's, you know, I figured it out, but it's still, it's not trivial.
right.
I don't know if, you know, how much leeway you have, you know, when the contract renews or something like that.
Yeah, very little. I'm sorry to say, but yes.
Well, multiply this by every technology platform we become a part of, and you
Right.
know, it's not scalable.
Right, absolutely.
In the comment section, my husband gave me this article. Texas Library offers a glimpse of a bookless future, and it's all about a library without books and without having to build a building that would hold the weight. So I'm just going to donate it to the pile in case anybody would like to read it.
Before we get past the comments, I wanted to thank the commissioners who were leaving, Mary Beth and Leo, especially Leo, for being here for 6 years and two chairmanships, and at least, right? And you were here during some difficult, complicated times. So I really appreciate your help, and it made my transition coming in as a library director much easier. And Mary Beth and Eileen, who's not here tonight, I appreciate all of your service on as part of the commission. So thank you very much.
Does that mean this is our last meeting? I thought there was still the
you
April.
still have the April.
Okay, I was just checking.
But I wanted
I was thinking that
in the
it was still
event that there was something that happened, I wanted to
Okay,
be sure.
thank you.
But no, you are required to come in April.
Drag. No, I always enjoy these meetings, especially the controversial ones. Yeah, we'll do it next time. So the agenda for the next meeting. Do we have?
I think that if Orange Boy can come, that will be a substantial part of time to be sure that they've answered your questions and to review the data. So I would suggest that be the bulk of time, and hopefully we could have maybe just a written report or update about any of the building construction, unless something dramatic happens between now and April. And anything else that you have that you know of?
No, I have nothing burning. I always like to know about the media outreach. But I do think it's appropriate to spend time on Orange Boy, which I think is really exciting and sounds complex. Me, I'd kind of want to have time to wrap my brains around it.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if this is an agenda item specifically, but I wanted to bring back up the issue that we talked about, the Speakers Bureau, or I know a lot of the stuff got sort of pushed back based on the delay of the opening. But I'm just thinking of myself. Well, I'd still like to be involved with libraries in some way, and I guess that would be an opportunity to do something. And it would be a shame since that presentation had so much thought put into it. If it didn't get used, maybe we need to dust it off even more after some new services have come online. But I don't know if it would be appropriate just to touch on. I don't know if there's a subcommittee, although it's probably not the right time to create one. Just maybe just see if that's something, maybe when we should plan on kicking that off.
Well, it could be an agenda item to bring Eric up to speed. We had an advocacy effort. Actually, I guess it was last year and the year before last, an advocacy effort where we prepared a template that could be taken out to the public, the commissioners, library friends, foundation board members, former commissioners could take and speak to their groups, and they'd have some very basic PowerPoint slides touching on aspects of the library that then they could tailor to their audience. I think with the reduced meeting schedule and fewer commissioners, it kind of got set aside. But that does exist. And we also did, in the past, a lot of work, other commissioners did a lot of work on metrics. And some of those metrics now appear in the statistics. And I would think that with Orange Boy, you might be looking at what kind of statistics you would collect where you would need to measure, but maybe the dashboard does that anyway. I can see. I'm really excited about Orange Boy, so that's an obvious one for April.
Well, and as always, there will be space on the agenda, or if you have an idea that comes to you in the next, between now and then. Mm-hmm. So.
One of the things I'd suggest is just to have a brief summary of the programs the libraries can be offering during the summer, say between May and August or May and September. Just these are the programs, this is what we're doing, this is where they're going to be located. Because I don't think enough people realize, I certainly didn't realize the extent of the offerings and the programs that the library is providing. And I think that'd be a nice thing to put out there and get people aware of. And I have kind of ambiguous feelings about publicizing them, because what you heard, when they went out and asked for more attendees, they had a huge response, which we couldn't satisfy. But it's probably a lot better to have more people aware of it and say, we want to do more of it, than not have them aware of it at all and then think that there's no interest. So I think just a tabulation and a very brief description of what they are. We can have a very brief discussion of it at the meeting.
I'd just like to draw our attention to hot off the press with a calendar, which is, has 2 months back to back. So this is the January issue and it's February. So it's pretty descriptive. It's in the back.
And then we will also have information coming out in the Enjoy catalog as well that will talk about the programs that are coming up as well.
Okay.
I have a question, not the agenda suggestion. I have a question because I attend the e-publication seminar the other day. I think it was last Wednesday. And it says that the whole process was recording, right? So then who owns this copyright?
That's actually a very good question, and we're reviewing the policy on that, and to see exactly how that was done. That was one of the companies that was involved that had a panelist on there. So I'll look into that and then get you an answer.
Yeah, just because I think of this, and Cheryl just made her report presentation, and she said that once there's information about certain program, it just filled out so quickly. And lots of other kids or families, they are not able to join because of limited quota. So I don't know if it's feasible that if we can record the whole program, for instance, if the program is about the zoo or introduce something, can we record it and put it online? So even though some kids or families or some other teens, they are not able to join it, but they can watch it.
I agree. It's something we'd really like to do. And so there's been some discussion. There's been a lot of discussion with the city, just trying to figure out the right arrangement for that. So, and I think actually I saw an email just as I was dashing out that was coming through with an answer on that. So, but I didn't actually have a chance to even read it because it was right at the end of the day. But I'll get you an answer.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
One other point before we adjourn.
Is it related to the agenda?
I wanted to give my personal thanks to Leo and Mary Beth for
I will allow it.
their dedication and participation on the Library Commission. I think you've been invaluable, and I think we're all going to miss having you here. I think it's been really excellent to have you, and I really appreciated the work you've done. I think you've been marvelous.
Thank you. And I think Eileen couldn't be here, but she's added a lot too. So thank you, Val.
Thank you.
And of course, I want to thank you too for your leadership and your guidance. Thank you very much. And a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right. It is so moved.